Hi, everybody. Are you looking for some free science fiction and fantasy books to get you through this weekend? We have the five best-selling free sci-fi and fantasy books on Amazon for you today. Every Friday, we read the first few chapters of each of these books, and today's list includes space battles, magical mysteries, and a sexy orc. But before we get to all that, hi everybody, welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Maria KOROLOV. I'm the editor here at MetaStellar, and today I want to thank editor E.S. Foster and Alex KOROLOV and our newest community member Arturo Sierra for helping us out with our reviews. And Emma is here with us today. Hi, Emma.
Hey,
All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of these videos. And let's get into the books, starting with book number 5, and we're going to count down to book number 1. So this is book number 5 on today's bestseller, Amazon bestseller list for sci-fi and fantasy, just for the free books. The list exists. It's in the description box below. Amazon does not make it easy to find, but it's a really great list. A lot of publishers make the first book in a series free to promote the rest of the series. Independent authors do this as well. We get New York Times bestselling authors on this list, USA Today bestselling authors. We get books with thousands of five-star reviews. Fantastic list if you want to read stuff for free. All right, book number 5 on today's list is Antiques and Apparitions by Cielle Kenner. It's the first of 9 books in the Enchanted Antique Shop, a cozy magical mystery series. The other books are $1 to $6 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is where you pay 12 bucks a month and you read all the books you want, kind of like a Netflix for books. Also, the second book in this series is also free today. So check it out. And I read the beginning of this book because I love cozy magical mysteries. And it's not the weather for cozy magical mysteries. It was in the 80s this week here in Massachusetts, but I still like the idea of it. So our protagonist's name is Marley, and she's a photographer who recently moved to Miami, signed some new corporate clients, and was able to buy a nice new camera. And the book opens with her on the beach taking photos of a gorgeous sunset, and she notices that the same woman keeps photobombing every one of her shots. And this woman is wearing an old-fashioned baggy swimsuit that's more like a swimming dress than a swimsuit. And no matter what angle Marley tries, no matter where she points her camera, the weird woman is there. But when she puts down the camera, she doesn't see the woman at all. Then, when she's driving home, she notices that all the signs and billboards along the road have been replaced by vintage ones from the 1920s. And she notices things like that because she does a lot of marketing and advertising photography. At first, she thinks maybe there's a movie filming in the area, and or maybe a historical society gearing up for a conference, or maybe she's just losing her mind. After dinner, she's on her laptop going through the photos. The weird woman is still there. Then the whole room around her blurs, and for a second she feels as though she's in the 1950s, surrounded by old school furniture, and her laptop has been replaced with a vintage typewriter, and there's even a woman on a couch dressed in vintage clothing. Then it's all back to normal again, and her phone rings. It's her grandmother. She wants Marley to come back to the small town of Enchanted Springs in Central Florida to take some pictures for the town's annual Founders Day festival. So Marley can definitely use a break. So she agrees, hops in the car, and drives to the small town. This is a very familiar premise to me. A modern woman goes back to her cozy hometown, discovers magical powers she doesn't know she had, and I don't care that I've seen this before because I love this premise. I like Marley. She seems to have her life well organized, except for the whole hallucinating thing. And she gets to the town and it looks just the same as she remembered, except it's maybe a little bit more prosperous. There's a lot of bustling businesses downtown and a lot of people walking around in period costumes because the tourists have discovered the place. So she drives up to the grandmother's bakery and she's talking to her grandmother and meeting other people in town and getting settled in. Lot of description of the town and its residents and of her relationships and catching up and everything. And when she goes outside, one of the people she meets is the mysterious woman who Marley photographed at the beach. Except this time she can talk with this woman, and the woman tells her that she is a ghost. So I love this beginning, and I think I'll stick with this book this weekend. And now for something completely different, her Orc King by Zoe Ashwood, an opposite of a cozy mystery. Nothing mysterious here. He's pretty much naked. So this is the first of 8 books in the Black Bear Clan, kind of a paranormal romance series, though it's set in a kind of traditional fantasy world, not a modern fantasy world. The other books are $4 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And yeah, nobody else wanted to take this book, so it's up to me to begin reading this. And I am not a fan of books about fated mates, about monster romance, about people of different sizes getting together, about kidnapping, about happily ever after endings. I don't like any of this stuff. And that is literally the list of tropes given in the description for this book. And in the first sentence of the book, the author tells us that the protagonist was kidnapped, sold at a slave auction, and dragged to Orc territory. So that pretty much tells you everything you need to know and whether you should keep reading or not. And I'm really glad the author makes that clear right up front. No surprises. So anyway, back to the protagonist. Her name is Dawn, and the book opens with her trussed up on this wagon with 2 massive orc guards on either side, and she thinks that she's on her way to becoming an orc sex slave. She's tried to escape several times, failed each time, and they keep sniffing her, which is creepy. Then they get to this orc settlement and they bring her to the Orc King and force her to walk between 2 lines of orcs, both men and women, who all sniff her so that they can find out if she's supposed to be one of their mates. And nobody seems to like her smell, so she's like, phew, I'm safe. Nobody's going to take me as their sex slave. Maybe she can get out of this. But no, the king himself smells her and announces that she is, in fact, his. Oh, and she's going to be his queen. And he smells good to her too. He smells like home. And the orc picks her up and carries her to a bedroom and puts her down. And she immediately looks around for a weapon, but he stops her before she can grab a knife. So, not my cup of tea. And I'm gonna go on a limb here and guess that she is gonna fall in love with him and have hot, steamy human orc sex. And if you're into that, well, you have lots of company because these books are very popular, and this particular book has over 3,000 5-star reviews. And tropes aside, the book is pretty readable. Dawn is a sympathetic, likable character who isn't letting all this stuff happen to her without putting up a fight, but still not my cup of tea. So, moving on. But if you do read it and you like it, let us know in the comments below. All right, next we have something yet completely different again. Dark Horizon by Robert J. Walker. It's a standalone book of post-apocalyptic survival. But if you like the author's style, he's got dozens, 60 to be exact, of very similar books up on Amazon, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. The author is a regular on our list. People love these kinds of books. And Alex KOROLOV read this for us. And since Alex isn't here today, Emma, can you tell us what Alex thinks of this book?
Yeah, it seems that he really enjoyed reading this one. So, it starts off, it's an EMP book. And for those of you who don't know, it means that an electromagnetic pulse knocks out all electronic devices. So, cell phones, computers, most modern day cars and planes, and then usually havoc ensues with these types of stories. So, Alex said he only had time to read the first chapter, but he said it was a fun read. So, let's get into it. It starts off with Annabelle Wheeler. She's the psychiatrist who works with psychopathic serial killers in some kind of prison. So she's in her office. She's interviewing one such murderous person named Bradley Channing. So this guy, he's a serial killer. He's been arrested. He's describing this gruesome torture and murder of one of his victims. And during this time, it's supposed to be supposedly clear that Channing is handcuffed when Dr. Wheeler started the interview with him. But after he describes the murder, he reveals that he slipped his cuffs. So he tricked Annabelle, and now she's trapped in this room with the serial killer. He proceeded to hit this button that locks down the room. So there's this button on the table or somewhere that Channing presses. It locks everything in. The guards are out there. They can't get in. Apparently, the only way for them to get back in is to put in a code. And why the guards don't know this code, I'm not sure, because she has to start shouting the code through the wall at them. But just as Dr. Wheeler starts to shout the code, Channing pounces on her, and at the same time, all the power's gone out, so now she's definitely in trouble. And it looks like it's not going to end up well for her. So that's the first chapter. It doesn't get into like the EMP part of it, but Alex says that it was a really great chapter, and this was actually one of his favorites. He said it was an interesting premise, interesting start to the story, so he's definitely going to consider continuing with it.
And Alex reads a lot of these books.
Yeah,
So when he says that this is one of his favorites, you can it means something.
yeah.
Although I suspect that all the power in the room going out, that was the EMP.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good point.
That's my suspicion. Okay, next we have another cozy magical mystery. Let me make that a little bigger for you guys so you can see it. There's the cover. It's called Grave Mistake. It's by Laura Greenwood and Arizona Tape. And it's a standalone novel set in the same universe as the 13-book Amethyst Wand Shop Mysteries, which is a cozy magical mystery series. The other books are $3 to $6 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And Emma read this for us. Emma, what did you think of this book?
I was glad to get the cozy mystery because, especially with like the fall season, I really love delving into these. So, this one I thought was interesting because it looks like a paranormal romance on the surface, but it's definitely got this more sciencey bent to it, and it's something I haven't seen before. So, I was really excited. But it starts off with Dr. Stacy Barnes. She's this young pathologist. She's performing an autopsy. She works a lot with forensics and that type of thing. And she's finishing up with this body that she's just finished autopsying. And she determines their cause of death, but then she meets up with her friend Gabriel, who also works there. He announces that there's another case that she might be interested in. And one thing I thought was funny and quirky about her character is that she has this like autopsy bucket list type thing where depending on like she has like this list of different types of cases or different bodies that she wants to find so she can check it off on a bucket list. So there are all these different kinds of things that she really wants to find, and she kind of feels weird for thinking that this is really enjoyable and that she really loves her job, but you know, I guess you got to enjoy that sort of thing so that you don't get too down about it. But in this world, paranormal occurrences are the norm. So Dr. Barnes actually works with the paranormal police department, and it investigates crimes committed by and against entities such as witches. There also happens to be a serial killer out there who currently targets witches, and this is a case that Stacy really wants to help out on. So she and Gabriel prepare to tackle their next case. And this is actually on her bucket list. Two bodies found inside one coffin. So during their investigation of both bodies, the story switches to Gabriel's perspective. And we get a little information about the two of them. This is sort of like where the romance part of it comes in, because it seems that he sees Stacy as more than a friend after growing up together, and Stacy might feel the same way. Thankfully, it doesn't dwell too much on the romance. It just keeps going with the investigation. I said, "Whew, okay." So, as they know the particulars of the bodies, Stacy and Gabriel guess that one body belonged to a necromancer. So, one is definitely the owner of the coffin, and then the other one was put in there by we don't know who. But other than that, they don't really have much to go on. However, it soon becomes apparent that maybe this murder has something to do with that infamous witch hunting serial killer we saw earlier. So it looks like Gabriel and Stacy are going to team up to solve the case. So I always enjoy looking at the cozy mystery books for reviews. I was pleasantly surprised with this one because I liked how it connected magic with science and it brought this sort of modern fantasy aspect to it. And I don't really see that too often. I see a lot of cozy mystery premises, but I've never really seen one with this one. I also enjoyed the banter between Stacy and Gabriel and how their characters developed because even if they did have feelings for each other, it wasn't like super in your face, and it was like it didn't come across as like, oh, this is definitely going to be a romance, you know. This is more like, oh, they make really great friends, and it's nice to see their banter. So
So
I think I might stick with this one,
it
and I
sounds a
recommend it.
little bit like the Bones version, but with like paranormal stuff,
Yeah.
which I love that show. So you also read the Orc book by
Oh,
mistake.
yes,
So
I
how do you
did.
compare the two?
I absolutely prefer reading stuff like this, especially since this is cozy. The one when I tell you I was sweating from anxiety, and I sweating so bad, I was like, I hope this isn't going to turn out the way that I think it is. This was like, oh yeah, they're investigating dead bodies, but it's fine. You know, I'd much rather enjoy that.
All right. So before we go on to book number one, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. So MetaStellar is an online magazine of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. We publish a lot of short stories. In fact, we're in the middle of our fall submission cycle right now for original fiction. If you have original fiction to submit, we pay 8 cents a word. We also publish reprints. Emma's the reprints editor. We don't pay for reprints, but we can publish a lot more of them because of that. But anyway, all the author payments are thanks to our Patreon supporters. The rest of us, all the staff on the team are all volunteers. So all the money donated goes to science fiction and fantasy authors. And we also have 3 anthologies out. All the links are in the description box below. We've already started working on our fourth anthology, and Emma is helping edit that as well. Emma, by the way, is also a book coach and editor. So if you need help with that, and I have books up on Amazon. All right, so let's get into book number one on today's list, which is one that I'm really looking forward to checking out myself. Arturo Sierra read this for us, one of our newest community members, and he's not here today, so I'm gonna tell you what he thought of it. The title is Capital Fleet by Scott Bartlett, and it's a box set of all 3 books in the Ixon Legacy Space Opera series, which is part of the Ixon universe. And the books in this box set are normally $5 to $7 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And since this is part of a bigger universe of books, I looked up on the author's website how you're supposed to read them. And you're supposed to start with a 3 book series, The Ixon Prophecies, then read Mech Wars, which has 4 books in it, um, then read this box set, the Ixon Legacy series, and then finish up with a 3 book Fleet Ops series. And 2 of those are also available as box sets, and all the books are in Kindle Unlimited. So Arturo wound up, since he's like reading the 3rd series out of the 4th series in this universe, he kind of like started like in the middle of the action. So he says that you can tell right away that this is an installment of a series that's been going on for quite a while. Um, and it is the beginning of a fresh adventure, but he suspects that some of the characters and themes have carried over, but he doesn't know yet how critical it is to have read the previous volumes in order to enjoy this one. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, I suggest starting with the first book. So Arturo says that you do get a summary of the story so far, right after the cold opening, but it seems to be a little abbreviated, kind of intended to jog your memory rather than make up for not having read those books at all. And he says he read the first few chapters, and There weren't really any space battles yet, but there are hints that they're coming and that they're going to be good ones. So he was most reminded of the TV show Battlestar Galactica, and not just because of the way the naval space actions are described. The ship captain, the hero of the book, has interactions with civilians on board the vessel that are reminiscent of Will Adama's frustrating relationship with the civilians on his ship. And this will probably become a big plot point since the ship is not your run-of-the-mill space cruiser. It carries an entire city in its belly, full of ordinary people living ordinary lives. And he says that this sounds like an interesting twist on your typical space opera, and he's curious to see how it's going to work. And I am curious as well. I don't think I have seen that either. I mean, I've seen space stations with a lot of people on them, and I've seen like long distance traveling ships where everyone's asleep, on them, or maybe generation ship where people are awake, but those ships don't really engage in like space battles so much. However, Arturo was a little bit of annoyed to detect a little bit of like jingoism in this book. The civilian government on the ship is presented as a silly bureaucratic nuisance, which is only there to cover the hero's warnings about impending trouble and red tape until it's almost too late to do something. The civilian authorities are so against any use of force that they chastise the captain for destroying an enemy ship after it fired torpedoes against them, which kind of goes against his suspension of disbelief. And there's another moment where the government tries to make the hero take a test to determine if he's biased, which could be taken to mean racist in the context of this book, which is also a little bit concerning and a little too reminiscent of current issues happening in the world today. So you can't tell what the author's actual stances on any political issues are, but these particular points aren't handled with a lot of sophistication, and it could be a turnoff for readers. But other than that, if you enjoy military space opera, there's cool action in there, and some of the world building seems crafted specifically to up the stakes, which he says will make the battles probably very exciting to read. He doesn't know that there's any ideas that are totally original, but they might still be coming in. And if you like this genre, it's a great opportunity to discover a new author. And I, for one, am going to check it out because I am willing to forgive space opera authors quite a bit in terms of like political issues, just for the sake of getting cool space battles. All right. So, that's it for today's books. If you like any of them, let us know in the comments below. If there's any books you guys want us to review, we also do other reviews besides the Free Friday. So, definitely drop us a line. And if you want to hang around on our channel a little bit further, here's a couple of videos that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye. See you next
Bye.
Friday.